The phone felt heavy in my hand, an ominous weight foreshadowing the icy words to come. I was about to call my son, James, to inquire about his wedding plans, a joyous occasion I'd meticulously prepared for. But before I could utter a single syllable, my daughter-in-law, Mia, her eyes gleaming with a chillingly pleasant smile, preempted me. "Oh, we already got married yesterday," she announced, her voice dripping with a saccharine sweetness that sent a shiver down my spine. "We only invited special people." The statement hit me like a physical blow, a gut punch that stole the breath from my lungs. Special people? The words echoed in my ears, a cruel mockery of the 3 years I'd dedicated to supporting them. 3 years of unwavering financial assistance, the consistent $500 monthly rent payments, meticulously transferred on time, the countless trips to furniture stores, carefully selecting pieces to furnish their home, from the plush, cream-colored sofa to the sturdy oak dining table, the countless times I'd rushed to the grocery store, filling their refrigerator with fresh produce and staples when their pantry was bare. I had even paid for Mia's driving lessons so she would be independent and have an easy time getting to her job, at the time, an entry-level position at a small boutique. Was I not considered special? I, the woman who had sacrificed so much, who had put their needs above my own. Standing there in the quiet, familiar living room of my own house, a house I'd painstakingly maintained for decades, I felt a strange disconnect. The phone felt like a lead weight in my hand, almost too heavy to hold. My gaze drifted to James, my son, avoiding my eyes, his shoulders slumped in a posture of guilty avoidance. Mia, meanwhile, was sprawled comfortably on the very sofa I had bought for them, her relaxed demeanor a stark contrast to the turmoil raging within me. The pale pink bridesmaid dress I'd carefully selected for her, the one I'd envisioned her wearing in photographs that would forever capture this monumental day, hung untouched and forgotten in my closet, a poignant symbol of my exclusion. It was a dress I had painstakingly chosen, considering the soft fabric and delicate beading that would perfectly complement her skin tone, a dress I had spent $200 on, envisioning myself in a beautiful photograph alongside the happy couple. Now, that beautiful dress serves as a painful reminder of what should have been. The matching shoes, exquisitely crafted with delicate pearls, lay beside it, equally useless, mirroring the shattered illusion of shared joy, of being an integral part of my only son's life. The $1,000 I had carefully saved for their wedding gift sat untouched in my savings account, a testament to my foolish generosity. I had even called my sister, Diana, in Chicago, excitedly sharing the upcoming nuptials, already planning a celebratory lunch to welcome the newlyweds. I had spent the entire previous week cleaning my house from top to bottom, scrubbing, dusting, and polishing every surface, hoping to create a warm and welcoming environment for the post-ceremony celebration that would never be. All of those plans, those hopes, those dreams, were reduced to ashes by those 4 chilling words, only special people. James finally met my gaze, his eyes downcast. "Mom," he mumbled, his voice sounding rehearsed, almost robotic. It was an intimate thing, very small, just the 2 of us and the witnesses. The lie hung heavy in the air, a suffocating cloud of betrayal. I had already seen the photos on social media, a cruel, blatant display of my exclusion. There was Mia, radiant in a white dress, a dress I'd helped finance with the $800 I'd given her last month for personal expenses. Her parents beamed beside the happy couple, their faces filled with pride. Her siblings raised champagne flutes in a celebratory toast. The images were a stark, painful reminder of my absence, a visual testament to my son's deliberate disregard for my feelings. I saw it all, every detail, every joyful moment I had been deliberately excluded from. The pictures felt like 1,000 tiny knives twisting within my chest. A week later, the saccharine sweetness was gone, replaced by a desperate plea. Mia called, her voice trembling, a stark contrast to the confident tone she'd used the previous week. The rent was overdue. The landlord was threatening eviction. "You forgot to make the transfer," she choked out, her voice laced with a desperate edge. My silence was deafening. The memories flooded back, countless trips to the bank, hastily rearranged schedules, cancelled plans, all to ensure they had a roof over their heads. The meager meals I'd eaten, the sacrifices I'd made, so they could have things I couldn't afford. And now, after this deliberate, hurtful exclusion, they had the audacity to call me as if nothing had happened. It was like a well-rehearsed play that I had been involuntarily removed from. "Mia," I said, my voice calm, surprisingly calm, even to myself, "didn't I warn you that I only help special people?" The silence on the other end was thick enough to choke on. For the first time in years, it was not my heart pounding in my ears, but hers. "Renate, I don't understand," she stammered, her voice breaking. "We were always special to you. You're like a second mother to me." Lies. All lies, cloaked in the honeyed tones she reserved for when she needed something, the same voice she'd used to solicit funds for the wedding dress, the honeymoon, the rings, all financed by me, oblivious to my impending exclusion from the ceremony itself. For years, I had walked on eggshells, carefully weighing every word, every gesture, every gift, hoping to earn a crumb of affection from my own son. I had been the perfect mother, the ever-obliging mother-in-law, the silent provider, never protesting when my presence was ignored, my feelings disregarded, my existence minimized. But those 4 poisoned words, "only special people," had ignited something within me, a dormant flame of self-respect that had been stifled for far too long. I calculated the cost of my generosity, the financial toll of my unwavering devotion. Between rent, groceries, gifts, emergencies, and their various whims, it was over $20,000. $20,000 taken from my retirement fund, my meager savings, money my late husband had left me to ensure my peaceful last years. And for what? To be treated like an invisible stranger on my own son's wedding day? A stranger in my own family. That night, after hanging up, I cried. But they weren't tears of sadness. They were tears of anger, of accumulated frustration, of years of silent humiliation. Tears of betrayal. I cried for all the times my love was treated as a burden, my presence a hindrance, my money the only thing that seemed to matter. I cried for the foolish mother I had been, the woman who had lost herself trying to be indispensable to those who clearly considered her dispensable. When I woke the next morning, a change had occurred. It wasn't simply the pain of betrayal, it was something deeper, colder. A hardening of the heart. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror, the same tired eyes, the same wrinkles telling tales of years of selfless devotion. But something had shifted in my gaze. There was a hardness there, a steely determination I didn't recognize, a resolve that had been buried under years of compliance. I made coffee, a ritual I'd performed for 40 years. But this morning was different. I didn't think about calling James, didn't check my phone, anticipating an apology that would never come. A new day had dawned, and with it, a new me. The weight of humiliation pressed down on me, a suffocating blanket. For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, my own well-being, my own needs, occupied the forefront of my thoughts. The familiar kitchen table, usually a battlefield of anxieties, where I'd meticulously planned birthdays and holidays for them, painstakingly balanced their budgets, and silently wept under the weight of their indifference, now held a different kind of tension. A quiet, determined tension. The worn checkbook lay open, bank statements fanned out beside it, a testament to years of misplaced generosity. I meticulously began the grim arithmetic, a ritual of self-reckoning. The $500 monthly rent, multiplied by the 36 agonizing months they'd lived under my roof, totaled $18,000, a sum that felt both abstract and brutally real. Then there was the food, the endless stream of groceries, approximately $200 a month, accumulating to another $7,200. Birthday gifts, Christmas presents, anniversary celebrations, the carefully chosen tokens of affection adding up to at least $3,000. Mia's medical emergencies, each a frantic scramble to cover unexpected costs, amounting to $800. The car loan, a debt they'd casually forgotten, hung over me like a dark cloud, $2,500. The air conditioner repair in their perpetually malfunctioning apartment, $600. The living room furniture, a lavish gift that had seemed so right at the time, now felt like a monument to my folly, $1,200. The grand total stared back at me, stark and unforgiving, $33,400. $33,400. $33,400 squandered. Money painstakingly saved from my late husband's inheritance, from my meager pension, from decades of honest, backbreaking work, pennies pinched and saved for a rainy day that had never come. All thrown away to maintain the comfort of two adults who couldn't even muster a pretense of respect. The shrill ring of the telephone sliced through my thoughts. James's name flashed on the screen. Usually, the sight of his name would send a jolt of hope through me, a desperate flutter of anticipation for an apology, for a long-awaited explanation, for the reconciliation that had seemed perpetually just out of reach. But today, something had shifted. A dam had broken. I let the phone ring once, twice, 3 times, the insistent trill echoing the silent screams of my heart. Finally, it fell silent, and I calmly continued sipping my coffee, the bitter taste mirroring the bitterness in my soul. 10 minutes later, it rang again. This time, it was Mia. I let it ring, the silence becoming a potent weapon in my arsenal of self-defense. Then, a text message arrived from James. "Mom, please answer. We need to talk." I stared at the message, the words a pathetic plea, and with a cold detachment I'd never known I possessed, I deleted it without reply. At 2 p.m., a decision solidified. I would take a walk. A simple walk, something I hadn't done in months, without a purpose, without an errand, without the frantic need to run to the bank for a transfer, to the supermarket for their groceries, or to the pharmacy for Mia's medications. Today, the purpose was simple: myself. I walked past the park, a place etched with memories of a younger James, a sweet boy who'd once hugged me tight and declared me the best mom in the world. The bittersweet pang of remembrance was overshadowed by a stark realization: when had that sweet boy morphed into a man who viewed me as an ATM with feelings? When had love become inextricably linked with money in my mind? When had I begun to believe that my son's affection could be purchased? The bank, my frequent accomplice in this tragic charade, loomed before me. I stopped at the entrance, my reflection staring back from the polished glass doors. Mr. Klein, the branch manager, a man I'd known for years, a silent witness to the steady depletion of my savings, spotted me and waved. He'd processed every single transfer to James and Mia, observed the slow, steady drain on my account month after month, year after year. He'd seen it all. Entering the bank, I walked directly to his office. "Mr. Klein," I said, my voice surprisingly steady, "I need to cancel the automatic transfers." His surprised expression was a mirror to my own internal transformation. For 3 years, those transfers had been as regular as sunrise, a predictable rhythm of my life's slow decay. "Are you sure, Mrs. Richter? Did something happen?" His concern felt genuine, profoundly more genuine than anything James had shown me in recent months. "What happened," I replied, a small, triumphant smile playing on my lips, "is that I finally opened my eyes. I want to cancel everything, and I also need information on how to protect my accounts. I don't want anyone else to have access to my money ever again." While Mr. Klein expertly processed the cancellations, my phone vibrated incessantly. James, Mia, James again. It was as if they'd developed some uncanny radar, sensing the imminent threat to their financial lifeline. I switched off my phone, silencing the relentless assault. "Mrs. Richter," Mr. Klein said, handing me the paperwork, his voice filled with a respectful understanding. "I apologize for intruding, but in all these years, I've seen you be very generous with your family. I hope you are not being pressured to make these changes." His words, imbued with a genuine concern that far surpassed any demonstrated by my own child, touched me deeply. This man, who barely knew me beyond our transactions, showed more compassion than my own son. "I'm not being pressured, Mr. Klein," I replied. "On the contrary, I have finally stopped pressuring myself." Leaving the bank, a lightness I hadn't felt in years washed over me. It was as if I'd shed an enormous, suffocating burden, leaving it behind in that quiet office. For the first time in years, my money, my hard-earned resources, were entirely my own. Free from the parasitic drain of those who saw me not as a person but as a resource. The thought of all the sacrifices I had made, the unfulfilled dreams and unmet needs, the trips I'd foregone, the friends I'd neglected, all for their supposed benefit, struck me with a wave of anger and sadness. The hobbies I'd abandoned, each dollar spent on myself feeling like a theft from their perceived needs, each moment of self-indulgence a betrayal. As I approached my house, 3 cars greeted me, James's, Mia's, and a third, unfamiliar vehicle. Movement inside my home was visible through the windows. My blood ran cold. They had keys I had given them out of blind trust, out of a naive belief in their eventual reciprocity, in their eventual gratitude. I took a deep breath, a deep, steadying breath, and faced the opening of my front door. It was time for the first real confrontation of my new life. The confrontation, the inevitable clash, the showdown which would begin this final chapter of my life. What I would soon see on the other side of that door would forever be etched into the tapestry of my memory. I opened the door, and the scene that unfolded before me was one I will never, ever forget. The phone call had already warned her. The dread that had coiled in her stomach since that chilling conversation tightened its grip. Now, standing in her own living room, facing the looming figures of her children and their lawyer, Renate, felt the icy tendrils of betrayal wrap around her heart. "Renate, thank God you're here," Mia breathed, her voice laced with a practiced concern that Renate found utterly nauseating. "We need to talk." The lawyer, Mr. Fisher, a man whose smile seemed permanently glued to his face, a smile that didn't reach his eyes, a smile that reeked of calculated manipulation, stood poised, his gray suit a stark contrast to the vibrant turmoil within Renate. "My situation," the question escaped her lips, a fragile whisper against the looming storm. "What situation?" "I'm doing perfectly fine." James, her son, finally raised his head, his gaze lingering on her. Those eyes, once filled with the innocent wonder of childhood, now reflected a chilling emptiness, the hollow void of financial desperation. The innocent child she remembered was gone, replaced by a stranger who saw only a means to an end. "Mom," he began, his voice a carefully modulated blend of concern and accusation, "we went to the bank, and they told us you canceled all the transfers. Mr. Klein explained that you also blocked our access to your accounts. We don't understand why you did that." The words hung heavy in the air, each syllable a tiny hammer blow against her already fractured spirit. The comfortable life they had grown accustomed to, the life she had meticulously financed, was now a weapon used against her. Fisher, a man whose age and experience should have instilled respect, instead radiated an air of predatory efficiency. He approached with an outstretched hand, a gesture Renate instinctively rejected. "Mrs. Richter," he began, his voice smooth as polished granite, "I am Dr. Fisher, a family law attorney. Your children are concerned about your mental well-being and have asked me to assess the situation." The audacity of it. To waltz into her home, examine her personal documents without her consent, and then pronounce judgment on her sanity. Renate felt a surge of righteous anger. She marched to her dining table, her movements sharp and decisive, gathering the files he had so carelessly scrutinized. "These are my private papers," she declared, her voice shaking with controlled fury. "You have no right to look at them without my consent." James, ever the master of manipulative pronouncements, chimed in with that condescending tone he'd perfected over the years, a tone that dripped with false solicitude. "Mom, we're worried about you. Your behavior has been very strange lately. First, you financially cut us off without an explanation. Then, you don't answer our calls. We think you might need professional help." Mia, ever the supportive sister, approached, offering a hand in a display of feigned tenderness, a calculated act designed to disarm her mother. "Renate, honey," Mia cooed, her voice dripping with saccharine sweetness, "we know you're under a lot of stress. Maybe the loneliness is affecting you more than you think. At your age, episodes of confusion are normal." The calculated cruelty of those words, episodes of confusion, struck Renate like a physical blow. It wasn't about concern, it was a calculated maneuver. It was about stripping her of her autonomy, about seizing control of her finances, about declaring her unfit to manage her own affairs. The realization hit her with the force of a tidal wave. These were not concerned children, they were predators disguised as offspring. The same Mia who had once confided in her about the wedding guest list, carefully curating the selection of special people, was now treating her like a senile old woman, easily manipulated and stripped of her agency. The memory of Mia's wedding, a lavish affair that excluded her, felt like a fresh wound. "I am not confused," Renate stated, her voice firm, unwavering, silencing the room. "I am clearer than I have been in years, and you are going to leave my house right now." Dar. Fisher, ever the professional, attempted to regain control. "Mrs. Richter, I understand you feel overwhelmed, but your children have a right to intervene if they believe your ability to make financial decisions is impaired. They have documented several concerning behaviors." Concerning behaviors? Renate's laugh was harsh, bitter, laced with pain. "Like what? Deciding that my money belongs to me? Deciding to no longer finance the lives of two adults who treat me like trash?" Mia leaped to her feet, her carefully constructed facade crumbling, revealing the raw, ugly truth beneath. "We never treated you badly. You are part of our family. Everything you have will belong to us one day anyway. We are just speeding up the process." The words hung in the air, devoid of any pretense of love or respect. It was a blatant admission of their parasitic relationship. Her financial resources were their birthright, and she was just an obstacle in their way. Her life, her worth, were measured solely in dollars and cents. Renate felt a cold fury rising within her, a fire that burned away the years of misplaced loyalty and enabling. "Out," she commanded, pointing to the door. "All three of you, get out of my house." James, his face contorted in a childish rage, stood defiant. "Mom, we can't just leave. We have obligations. The rent, the car payments, the credit card you co-signed for. You can't just cut us off from one day to the next." "Who says I can't?" Renate's voice, quiet for so long, finally cracked with a raw emotion that startled even her. "For years, I have paid rent that wasn't even in my name. I filled a refrigerator in a house where I was not welcome. I financed a life that clearly had no place for me." The years of resentment, the quiet sacrifices, the invisible support she had provided, all came flooding back. Dr. Fisher produced a folder, his efficiency chilling. "Mrs. Richter, we have prepared some documents that could facilitate this transition, a power of attorney that would allow James and Mia to manage your finances more efficiently. This would just be temporary, until you feel better." Renate snatched the folder, her hands trembling with barely controlled rage, and tossed it directly into the trash. "The only transition that is going to happen here is yours, to the front door." Mia's tears weren't tears of sorrow, they were tears of frustration, of thwarted entitlement, of rage at having their parasitic existence threatened. "You can't do this to us, Renate. We were counting on you. We made plans based on your support. We bought things. We took on financial obligations because we knew we could count on you." "Obligations based on my money," Renate corrected, her voice hard as steel, "not on my well-being, not on my happiness, not on my company, just on my money. And now that I have decided that my money is better used in my own life, I am suddenly a confused old woman who needs legal guardianship." James attempted to approach, but she recoiled, the image of her once beloved son replaced by a calculating adult who saw her as nothing more than a financial ATM, an obstacle to his comfortable life. "Mom, we made mistakes," he pleaded, his voice dripping with insincerity, a pathetic attempt to regain her favor. "The wedding was a misunderstanding. Mia was nervous. I was under pressure. We can fix this if you just become reasonable again." "Reasonable?" Renate tasted the bitterness of the word, the years of silent resentment bubbling to the surface. "Being reasonable means continuing to pay for your life while you treat me like a stranger. It means pretending it doesn't hurt to have been excluded from the most important day of my only son's life." The pain was raw, visceral. She had given everything, and received only betrayal in return. Dar. Fisher, his professional composure finally faltering slightly, began gathering his papers, the efficiency of his movements a stark reminder of the calculated nature of their attack. Renate watched them go, a strange sense of liberation washing over her. The fight was far from over, but for the first time in a long time, she felt a glimmer of hope. The fight for her own life, her own dignity, had begun. The attorney, Mr. Fisher, a man whose tailored suit seemed to exude an air of practiced legal intimidation, leaned forward, his words slicing through the tense silence of my living room like shards of ice. He was a seasoned professional, accustomed to the subtle art of extracting concessions, a man who had undoubtedly seen countless proposals rejected, yet his demeanor betrayed a hint of surprise at my unwavering resolve. Mrs. Richter, he began, his voice a low, controlled rumble, this is not over. Your family has legal avenues they can pursue. If, indeed, you are exhibiting signs of irrational decision-making stemming from underlying mental health concerns, a judge could deem you unfit to manage your own affairs, appoint a guardian. His words, like a physical blow, landed squarely in my gut. The polite veneer of a family visit had shattered, revealing the hard, cold steel of a legal threat. They weren't just trying to manipulate me, they were aiming to strip me of my autonomy, my independence, the very essence of who I was. This was not merely some fleeting disagreement, this was a calculated assault on my 71 years of self-sufficiency. I met his gaze directly, my eyes unwavering, a quiet strength emanating from my core. Mr. Fisher, I responded, my voice calm but firm, I suggest you conduct a thorough investigation before issuing such threats to a woman who has impeccably managed her finances for 4 decades, a woman who single-handedly raised her son after her husband's passing, a woman who worked diligently and honorably until retirement, and who, until just last week, provided financial support to 2 perfectly capable adults. The weight of my words hung heavy in the air, each syllable a testament to my life's work, a refutation of their accusations. Mia, who had been weeping silently, abruptly stopped. Her tears ceased, replaced by a chilling glacial stare, a look that stripped away the carefully constructed facade of filial concern, revealing the raw, cold ambition beneath. The transformation was stark, immediate, and unsettling. This won't end like this, Renate, she hissed, her voice sharp and brittle. We have rights. We have lawyers. A flicker of satisfaction danced in her eyes, the gleam of a predator who believes she's won the first skirmish. I responded with a chilling composure, perfect. Hire all the lawyers you desire. But use your own funds to finance these legal battles, because mine are no longer at your disposal to fuel your tantrums. James, his face a mask of barely concealed resentment, shifted his weight impatiently. He couldn't mask the wounded pride of someone accustomed to immediate compliance. Before they exited, James turned, his gaze lingering on me with a mixture of anger and something akin to desperate pleading. Mom, he began, his voice laced with a chilling premonition, this will end badly for you. You'll be alone, with no one to care for you when you truly need it. My heart ached, but a fierce, unwavering resolve solidified my spirit. James, I replied, my voice heavy with sadness, yet crystal clear in its intent, I am already alone. The difference now is that it's a solitude of my choosing, not one born from your neglect. The slam of the door echoed through the house, followed by a profound silence, a silence so profound, so absolute, that it was almost deafening. It was the silence of freedom, a silence I hadn't experienced in years, a silence that resonated deep within my soul. That night, sleep evaded me, but not from sorrow or regret. Instead, a surge of adrenaline coursed through me, the adrenaline of a battle won, a life reclaimed. As I lay in bed, my mind was a battlefield, strategizing, planning, meticulously charting my next moves like a general preparing for an imminent war. If they wanted a war, they would get one. But it would be a war fought with intelligence, with precision, with the unwavering strength born of decades of resilience, not with raw, uncontrolled emotion. The rising sun found me already dressed, my purpose clear and unwavering. My first stop was the office of Mr. Weber, a lawyer I had known for years, a man of impeccable reputation who specialized in elder law. Unlike Mr. Fisher, whose aggressive tactics reeked of intimidation, Mr. Weber's calm demeanor inspired confidence. I recounted the events of the previous day, my voice a steady stream of facts, devoid of melodrama. Mrs. Richter, he said after listening intently, his voice laced with both concern and professional understanding, what your children attempted yesterday is unfortunately more prevalent than you might imagine. It's a form of elder financial abuse, a serious federal crime. Their unauthorized entry into your home and examination of your private documents constitutes a further violation. His words, though alarming, also brought a sense of profound relief. It confirmed that my perceptions weren't clouded by some senile delusion. I wasn't crazy. This wasn't some family squabble escalating out of control. This was a calculated crime. We need to meticulously document everything, Mr. Weber continued, his voice low and measured, every financial transaction, every gift, every instance of coercion or undue influence. We'll also amend your will to safeguard your assets from future attempts at manipulation. This isn't just about recovering what they've taken, it's about protecting your future. We spent 3 hours meticulously reviewing my financial records. Mr. Weber whistled softly, a low sound of disbelief, when the total became clear, $33,400 depleted over 3 years. Mrs. Richter, he said, his tone laced with indignation, with this sum, you could have lived comfortably, traveled extensively, indulged in the joys of retirement. Instead, you essentially bankrolled the lives of 2 adults who didn't even extend the basic courtesy of inviting you to their own wedding. This isn't just financial abuse, it's a betrayal of trust on an epic scale. Leaving Mr. Weber's office, I felt a surge of empowerment, a feeling of control reclaiming its rightful place. My plan solidified: change the locks, install a comprehensive security system, open a new bank account, and finally, begin to live the life I had deferred for far too long. My next stop was the hardware store, a familiar place, as I had often purchased items to repair James and Mia's apartment. Mr. Summer, the owner, recognized me immediately. Mrs. Richter, he greeted me, his voice laced with the familiarity of a longtime acquaintance, a silent witness to my years of generosity. Another emergency with your son? No, Mr. Summer, I replied, my voice strong and resolute. This time, it's for my own house. I need new locks, the best quality available. His surprise was evident, but he wisely refrained from comment. As I browsed the locks, fate intervened in the form of Ethan, Mr. Summer's son, who happened to specialize in security system installation. It felt like divine intervention, a fortunate twist in the unfolding narrative. Ethan, I told him, I need a comprehensive surveillance system, a complete and thorough installation. Cost is not a concern. The next day, while the security system was being installed, my phone rang. It was Mia, using an untraceable number since I'd blocked hers after our confrontation. Renate, it's Mia. Please don't hang up. We need to talk like civilized adults. Speak, I responded, my tone devoid of warmth. Listen, she said, her voice attempting a false note of contrition, we understand you're upset about the wedding. It was a mistake. James and I have discussed it, and we want to make amends. How about a special dinner? We could celebrate our wedding with you, cook together like we used to, at your house. The manipulation was so blatant, so transparent, that it was almost comical. Mia, I said, cutting through her carefully crafted deception, how much rent are you currently behind on? The silence was deafening, her carefully constructed facade crumbling under the weight of my question. Well, it's 2 months, $1,000 total, she stammered, her voice a thin thread. But I'm not just calling about that, Renate. We really miss you in our lives. Do you miss me, or my money? I asked, my voice sharp and direct. Both, she admitted, the admission hanging in the air like a confession. A surprising honesty, a raw, unfiltered honesty that sliced through the carefully constructed facade of their relationship. Renata, I began, my voice trembling slightly, I won't lie. Yes, you need my financial help, but that's not the whole truth. The truth is, or rather, was, that I loved you. I truly believed you loved me in return. You were, or so I thought, important to me. Incredibly important. The silence that followed was thick, heavy with unspoken accusations and years of pent-up resentment. It hung in the air, a suffocating blanket. Then, the words poured out, a torrent of bitter truth. If I'm so important, I finally said, my voice laced with a pain that resonated deep within my bones, then why wasn't I important enough to be at your wedding? Why wasn't I worthy of a phone call that wasn't a thinly veiled plea for money? When was the last time you called me simply to ask how I was doing? Just to hear my voice, to share a moment of connection, independent of financial transactions? Another silence, a deafening void echoing the answer. We both knew. Never. Mia's voice, when it finally came, was a whisper, barely audible. It lacked the confidence, the commanding tone I had grown accustomed to over the years. It was the voice of someone caught in a web of their own making, finally confronted with the consequences of their actions. She began to explain, to justify, but I cut her off, my patience exhausted. Mia, I interrupted, my voice firm but controlled, this is the last time I'll explain this. For 3 long years, you've treated me like an ATM with feelings, a convenient source of funds, devoid of any emotional significance. You used me, you ignored me, you humiliated me, and finally, you insulted me in the most profound and devastating way imaginable. And now, with your financial wellspring running dry, you suddenly discover your love for me? There is no, please, Mia. There is no redemption for the years of emotional neglect and blatant exploitation. You made your choice when you deemed me insignificant, unworthy of attending your wedding. Now, I'm making mine. I hung up, the abrupt disconnect a symbolic severing of ties, a final act of self-preservation. I then switched off my phone entirely. No more interruptions. This was my day of liberation. That afternoon, I walked into the beauty salon, a place I hadn't graced in over a year. Appointments had been cancelled time and again, either because James or Mia needed something urgent, or because the money I'd meticulously saved for myself had been diverted to cover their latest financial emergency. Cynthia, Mrs. Richter, my beloved hairstylist, greeted me with a surprised gasp. Mrs. Richter. What a surprise. I thought you'd forgotten us. Her words were laced with both warmth and concern, a stark contrast to the coldness I'd experienced at home. I didn't forget you, Cynthia, I replied, a small smile playing on my lips. I simply forgot that I deserved to be pampered. I forgot that my needs mattered. That my happiness held any value. The full treatment, cut, color, manicure, pedicure, was an indulgence, a small rebellion against years of self-neglect. For the first time in years, the money I spent felt like an investment in myself, not a sacrifice for others. As Cynthia worked her magic, transforming my hair, we talked about her life, her children, her dreams. It was a conversation, remarkably, devoid of James and Mia's incessant demands and financial woes. When she was finished, Cynthia looked at me, her eyes reflecting a profound understanding. Mrs. Richter, she said softly, you look beautiful. But more than that, you look free. The words hung in the air, a potent statement of my newfound autonomy. Yes, Cynthia, I responded, the weight of years of suppressed emotion lifting from my shoulders. Something good happened. I finally learned to say no. As I drove home that afternoon, I noticed an unfamiliar car parked in front of my house. My heart pounded momentarily, a fleeting fear that James and Mia had returned with some sort of reinforcement. But as I drew closer, I saw an older woman sitting on the steps of my porch. Mrs. Richter, she asked, her voice gentle and kind. Yes, that's me. Can I help you? I'm Eleanor Brooks. I live next door. We've been neighbors for years, but we've never really had a chance to talk. Yesterday, I heard, well, some very loud voices coming from your house, and I got worried. Is everything all right? Her sincere concern, her genuine interest in my well-being, was profoundly touching. Here was a stranger who exhibited more empathy and care than my own son. Come in, Mrs. Brooks, I invited her, my voice choked with emotion. I'll make you some coffee, and I'll tell you a story you won't believe. Over coffee, I recounted everything, the secret wedding, the humiliation, the lawyer's visit, my decision to cut off the financial support. Eleanor listened patiently, nodding occasionally, her gaze filled with understanding and compassion. When I finished, tears welled in her eyes. Mrs. Richter, she said softly, her voice thick with emotion, you did the right thing. I went through something similar with my daughter 5 years ago. I, too, believed that my financial contributions were the measure of my love, the glue that held our relationship together. I foolishly believed they wouldn't love me without my money. What happened? I asked, my heart pounding with anticipation. I cut them off, she replied firmly, when I realized their calls were solely prompted by their needs, never by genuine concern for my well-being. At first, it was unbearable. Threats, emotional blackmail, guilt trips, they used every weapon in their arsenal. But after 6 grueling months, my daughter called. A genuine apology. Now, we have a real relationship, built on love, not on money. Her words were a beacon of hope, a validation of my decision. Do you think James and Mia will understand someday? I asked hesitantly. Maybe yes, maybe no, she answered honestly. But that's no longer your responsibility, Mrs. Richter. Your responsibility is to live your life, to prioritize your own well-being. That night, for the first time in 3 years, I went to bed without the gnawing anxiety of James and Mia's financial struggles weighing heavily on my heart. Instead, I thought about myself, my plans, my future, and slept soundly, a sleep deeper and more restful than I'd experienced in years. The next morning, Ethan and Mr. Summer arrived promptly at 8 a.m. to change the locks and install the state-of-the-art security system. While they worked, my phone buzzed incessantly with calls from unknown numbers, Mia, relentlessly trying to reach me from various untraceable phones. But I had acquired a new skill, a powerful tool for self-preservation, ignoring calls that didn't serve my peace of mind. Mrs. Richter, Ethan said as he secured the last camera, his voice tinged with professional satisfaction, this system will give you absolute peace of mind. You can monitor who's approaching your house, even remotely. And if anyone attempts unauthorized entry, an immediate alert is dispatched to the police. The irony wasn't lost on me. I was installing a security system to protect myself from my own son, but the act no longer caused me the same pain. It was simply a pragmatic measure to safeguard my newfound serenity. During the installation, a bold idea took root. I decided to do something I hadn't done in years, call my sister, Diana, in Chicago. Our communication had dwindled, every conversation revolved around James and Mia's achievements, the hefty sums I'd spent on them, and my pride in supporting them. I now realized that our conversations had been nothing more than thinly veiled financial reports masquerading as family updates. Diana? I said into the phone, my voice slightly shaky with anticipation and a touch of nervousness. Diana, her voice was laced with surprise. Sister, how are you? We haven't spoken in months. I'm good, Diana, I said, a warmth spreading through me. Better than good. I'm calling to tell you that I've finally come to my senses. And then, I told her everything, the whole, raw, unfiltered truth. Silence hung heavy in the air, thick and suffocating. When Diana finally spoke, her words, though soft, struck me with the force of a physical blow. Renate, sister, she began, her voice laced with a weariness that mirrored my own, it's about time. Every conversation we've had has left me heartbroken. You constantly boast about the money you've given them, as if love, the very essence of family, could be quantified, reduced to mere dollar amounts. It's like you're trying to buy your way into their affection, to purchase a love that money simply can't buy. A lump formed in my throat. I wanted to speak, to defend myself, but the words caught in my chest. What could I say? How could I explain the years of sacrifices, the constant worry, the relentless stream of financial support that seemed to only fuel their insatiable desires? Then, Diana's voice, quiet but firm, pierced through my internal turmoil. Renate, I wanted to tell you something I've noticed. Something about James. I've seen him at family gatherings, and he never once spoke of you with love or affection. It was always, my mom helped me with this, or my mom bought me that. Never, I miss my mom, or I love my mom. It was as if you were a mere service provider, a bottomless ATM dispensing cash, not the person who birthed and raised him, the woman who sacrificed so much for him and his well-being. The woman who loved them both unconditionally. Her words were a searing indictment, a painful truth I had somehow refused to acknowledge. It felt like a necessary pain, though, like a doctor's scalpel slicing through infected tissue, unpleasant, yet essential to the healing process. Diana continued, her voice heavy with a sadness that mirrored my own burgeoning despair. And Mia. Mia always speaks of you in the future tense. When Renate is no longer here, we can remodel her house, or, when we inherit, we will invest in the business. It's as if they're already anticipating your death, eagerly awaiting the moment when they can finally claim your assets, when they can finally grasp the inheritance they've so eagerly anticipated. It's chilling, Renate, truly chilling. They're not just treating you like an ATM, they see you as a temporary impediment, an obstacle between them and their ill-gotten gains. The revelation hit me with the brutal force of a physical assault, leaving me reeling, breathless. Years of devotion, years of unwavering support, all reduced to a cold, calculated equation. 35 years of raising James alone after Robert's death, 3 years of supporting 2 ungrateful adults who viewed me as nothing more than a 6-figure obstacle to their extravagant lifestyles. It felt like a betrayal of epic proportions, a gut punch that left me gasping for air. The realization was devastating, a crushing weight settling upon my soul. The doorbell rang, a jarring sound that ripped me from my contemplation. Through the new security cameras installed only last week, a precaution I wish I'd taken sooner, I saw Eleanor, my dear friend, holding a steaming mug. She understood, she always did. Eleanor, with her quiet strength and unwavering support, had been my rock, a constant source of solace amidst the storm. Opening the door, I gratefully accepted the proffered coffee, the warmth of the cup a small comfort against the icy chill of betrayal. "I thought you might need some company after yesterday," she said, her voice gentle, her smile sincere, a testament to the enduring power of true friendship. We settled into my living room, the quiet hum of the refrigerator the only sound accompanying our conversation. Eleanor, ever perceptive, shared her own harrowing experiences, her voice tinged with a mixture of pain and hard-won wisdom. "My daughter, bless her heart, used the same phrases Mia used on you. You're like a second mom to me, we're so special to you, everything will be ours one day anyway." Those aren't genuine sentiments, Renate. Those are carefully rehearsed lines, straight out of the emotional manipulation handbook. I chuckled, a bitter, hollow sound. "Do you think such a handbook actually exists?" I asked, half joking, yet secretly wondering if there was some sort of sinister guide for exploiting parental love and generosity. Eleanor's reply was both chilling and sadly predictable. "Not officially, but it seems everyone's reading from the same playbook. Chapter 1, Make her feel indispensable. Chapter 2, Create constant financial emergencies. Chapter 3, When she resists, question her mental health." It's a vicious cycle designed to drain the emotional and financial resources of unsuspecting parents. We shared a bitter laugh, the humor a thin veil over the shared tragedy of our situation. "Did you ever feel guilty about cutting them off?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. Eleanor nodded, her gaze unwavering. "Every single day for the first 3 months. The guilt was a constant companion, a gnawing presence in my life. But then, I started seeing the results. My daughter had to get a second job. Her husband stopped his weekly golf outings, realizing that he needed to contribute to their household expenses. They learned to live within their means, to budget, to prioritize. And most importantly, Eleanor paused, a gentle smile playing on her lips. They learned that I was a person, not a bottomless well of money, a human being with my own needs, my own desires, my own life to live, not just a resource to be exploited. That afternoon, propelled by a newfound resolve, I did something I had avoided for years. I visited Robert's grave. For years, James and Mia's manufactured crises had kept me from performing this simple act of love and remembrance. The taxi fare, they'd always insist, was better spent on their so-called emergencies. The cemetery was a sanctuary of quiet beauty, a stark contrast to the chaos that had consumed my life. Robert's grave, however, looked neglected, the flowers withered and drooping. I sat on the grass, the coolness of the earth a soothing balm against the emotional turmoil that still raged within me. I spoke to him as if he were still alive, pouring out my heart, confessing my mistakes, my failures, and the immense relief I felt at finally seeing the truth. "Robert, my love," I whispered, my voice cracking with emotion. "I think I lost myself for a while. After you left, I poured all my energy into James. I wanted to be the perfect mother, the best mother in the world, believing that somehow it would compensate for his lack of a father. But in that process, in my desperate attempt to make him happy, I forgot to be myself. I forgot my own needs, my own desires, my own life. He's become someone I don't even recognize. Or perhaps, he was always like this, and I chose not to see it. Mia, well, you know how she is. The money you left for us to live peacefully, I spent it all taking care of them. But no more, my love. I've learned my lesson." I cleaned his grave, replacing the withered flowers with fresh blooms. I spent another hour there, simply sitting in the peace, finally able to feel the quiet solace I'd craved for so long. For the first time in years, I wasn't in a hurry to rush home to solve another manufactured crisis for James and Mia. I savored the stillness, the absence of demands, the quiet presence of my beloved Robert. When I finally arrived home, 3 cars were parked in front of my house, a familiar sight that used to fill me with dread. This time, however, the dread was tempered with a steely resolve. The security cameras showed James, Mia, and 2 other individuals I didn't recognize. They appeared agitated, their animated gestures and pointed conversations clearly visible through the camera's lens. I didn't get out of the car. I called Mr. Weber, my lawyer, my voice steady, my resolve unshakable. "Mr. Weber, they're at my house again. This time, they've brought reinforcements. What should I do?" "Don't get out of the car, Mrs. Richter. I'll be there immediately, and I'll alert the police. I filed for a temporary restraining order after our conversation yesterday. They are not permitted on your property. Do not engage with them." Minutes later, Mr. Weber and 2 police patrol cars arrived, a beacon of hope in the encroaching darkness. I watched as the officers spoke to James and Mia, their faces grim, their demeanor serious. I saw James gesticulating angrily, his face contorted in a mask of frustration. I saw Mia crying, but this time, her tears failed to evoke any empathy within me. They were crocodile tears, a performance designed to manipulate, to control. One of the officers approached my car. "Ma'am, you can exit your vehicle safely. Your visitors are leaving now." As I got out, James screamed at me from the street. "Mom, this is ridiculous. We're your family. You can't call the police on your own son." His words, once laden with power, now sounded hollow, pathetic even, as I watched him escorted off my property, his pleas ignored, his anger ultimately meaningless. I had finally reclaimed my life, my peace, and my self-respect. The healing, I knew, had just begun. My reply, surprisingly calm even to myself, hung in the crisp autumn air. "Family doesn't threaten lawsuits based on fabricated claims of mental incompetence," I stated, each word measured and deliberate. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the street, highlighting the absurdity of their accusations. Family doesn't force their way into someone's home, violating their privacy and sense of security. And family certainly doesn't treat their mother like a walking ATM, a limitless source of funds to be depleted at will. The accusation stung, a raw reminder of the years of subtle manipulation and outright exploitation. Mia shrieked, her voice echoing across the quiet suburban street, a shrill counterpoint to the gentle rustle of leaves in the nearby trees. "You're going to pay us everything you owe us. Those bills you co-signed, the ones we've conveniently forgotten to mention for years, you can't just abandon us like this." Her face, contorted with rage and entitlement, was a frightening spectacle. James, usually lurking silently in the background, stepped forward, his expression a chilling blend of resentment and calculation. He didn't speak, but his presence amplified Mia's fury. He was the silent enforcer, his unspoken threats more potent than any words. "Mr. Weber, my lawyer, a man whose calm demeanor was a stark contrast to the volatile scene unfolding before him, smoothly interjected. His voice, low and controlled, cut through the air like a sharp blade. "Mrs. Brooks," he addressed Mia with measured politeness, a carefully constructed politeness that veiled the steel beneath. "Any further communication must be conducted through my office. I strongly advise you to consult with your own attorney before making any more collection threats. My client possesses complete and meticulously documented records of all voluntary payments made over the past 3 years. These records clearly refute your unsubstantiated claims." I watched them retreat, their anger simmering beneath the surface, defeated but far from surrendering. Their cars, identical, dull gray sedans, disappeared down the street, leaving behind a lingering tension. It was a temporary reprieve, a momentary lull in the storm. I knew this wasn't over, their vindictiveness was a palpable force. But, for the first time since this nightmare began, a wave of genuine confidence washed over me. It wasn't just a feeling, it was grounded in something tangible. I had professional legal counsel on my side, I had the unwavering emotional support of Eleanor, my dear friend, a woman who embodied the warmth and stability my family had cruelly denied me. And, perhaps most importantly, I had finally achieved a clear understanding of right and wrong, a clarity that had been obscured by years of emotional manipulation. That evening, under the warm glow of Eleanor's inviting kitchen lights, I felt a strange sense of peace. The aroma of roasted chicken and herbs filled the air, a comforting counterpoint to the turmoil I had endured. Eleanor's daughter, Sarah, a vibrant young woman with a bright smile and an easy laugh, was visiting. Watching them interact, the genuine affection, the respect, the easy flow of conversation, was a revelation. It was a glimpse into a healthy family dynamic, a world I had only dreamed of. Sarah never once hinted at needing financial assistance, her presence a stark contrast to the parasitic relationship I had endured with James and Mia. I longed for that kind of relationship with James, too, I confessed to Eleanor later that evening, after Sarah had left, the silence of the house feeling heavy with unspoken words. A single tear traced a path down my cheek, a silent testament to the years of yearning. Eleanor's hand gently covered mine. "And you will have it one day, my dear," she reassured me, her voice filled with quiet strength. "But first, he has to learn that you are a person who deserves respect, not just a source of income. He has to learn to see you as a human being, not an ATM." Her words struck a chord, a deep resonance of truth. The following days unfolded with an unsettling quiet. The surveillance cameras I had installed, a necessary precaution, recorded James and Mia driving past my house multiple times daily. Sometimes they crawled along slowly, their cars seeming to linger at the edge of my property. Other times, they parked for a few minutes, their occupants watching, assessing, waiting. It was a chilling game of cat and mouse, their actions a silent testament to their continued obsession. Mr. Weber, ever vigilant, had advised me to meticulously document every one of these visits. I maintained a detailed log, noting the precise date, time, and duration of each drive-by, transforming this unsettling surveillance into evidence that would support my case. Their persistence, as irritating as it is, will work in our favor, Mr. Weber had explained, his voice calm yet firm. Each time they violate the boundaries we've established, each unwanted visit, strengthens our case for a permanent restraining order. We're building a strong case, a bulletproof case. Their actions are their undoing. The tension reached a crescendo on Friday morning. The gentle clinking of my breakfast china was abruptly interrupted by a sharp ring of the doorbell. The security cameras showed a sharply dressed young woman, her posture ramrod straight, a professional smile fixed on her face, holding a folder in her hands. She wasn't familiar, but her demeanor was undeniably official, lacking the casualness of a social call. "Good morning, Mrs. Renate Richter," she announced as I opened the door. Her voice, though polite, held an undercurrent of authority. "I'm a social investigator from the Office of Senior Services. We've received a report suggesting you may be in a situation requiring our attention, and we need to conduct a wellness check." A cold dread gripped me. James and Mia had escalated their campaign of harassment, transforming it into something far more sinister. This was no longer just a matter of threats from private lawyers. They had, astonishingly, involved the government, manipulating the very systems designed to protect vulnerable individuals. "May I see your identification, please?" I asked, striving to maintain my composure, my voice steady despite the icy fear that threatened to consume me. She produced an official ID, seemingly legitimate. "I'm Mrs. Schmidt, a social worker. May I come in and speak with you?" I knew, even as the icy tendrils of fear twisted around my heart, that refusing entry would only exacerbate the situation, providing them with further ammunition. Mrs. Schmidt settled into my living room, her demeanor carefully neutral, and produced a form. "Mrs. Richter, we've received reports indicating significant changes in your financial behavior, a cessation of communication with your family, and evidence suggesting paranoia, specifically the installation of unnecessary security systems. We've also been informed that you've refused medical and legal assistance from your loved ones." Each word was meticulously chosen, a carefully crafted narrative designed to paint me as a mentally unstable, senile old woman. The insidious manipulation was unmistakable. I recognized Mia's handwriting in the phrasing of the report. Her talent for twisting words, for crafting deceptive narratives, had always been unnerving. "Miss Schmidt," I responded, summoning every ounce of dignity I possessed, "I wish to contact my attorney before answering any questions." "Ma'am, this isn't a legal interrogation. It's a wellness check. If you have nothing to hide, there should be no problem discussing this with me." The phrase, "if you have nothing to hide," was the ultimate hallmark of abusive tactics. The insidious implication was clear: if you're innocent, you shouldn't mind your privacy being invaded. "Miss Schmidt," I stated firmly, "I am calling my lawyer. You may wait here or return at another time, but I will not answer any questions without legal representation present." My call to Mr. Weber brought immediate relief. Within 20 minutes, he arrived, his expression hardening considerably upon seeing Mrs. Schmidt. "Miss Schmidt," he stated after verifying her identification, "I trust you possess a court order authorizing your presence here. My client is under my legal representation, and any unauthorized investigation constitutes harassment." Mrs. Schmidt's confidence visibly faltered. "Sir," she responded, her voice lacking its previous assurance, "we've received reports from concerned family members regarding the lady's well-being. It's our duty to investigate." Mr. Weber's dry laughter was devoid of humor. "What family?" "The same family that attempted to coerce her into signing a power of attorney without legal representation? The same family that illegally entered her home and examined her private documents? The same family that systematically excluded her from family events while simultaneously living off her hard-earned money?" He produced a meticulously organized folder from his briefcase, placing it on the coffee table with a decisive thud. "Here is comprehensive documentation of my client's financial and emotional abuse. Detailed records of $33,400 withdrawn from her accounts over 3 years. Systematic social exclusion, emotional blackmail. The evidence is overwhelming. If anyone requires investigation, it is not my client." Mrs. Schmidt reviewed the documents, her discomfort growing with each passing page. The discrepancy between the information she had received and the evidence before her was stark. The carefully crafted narrative of a vulnerable elderly woman unraveling before her eyes. Finally, she spoke, her tone considerably less assertive. "Mrs. Richter," she said, her voice subdued, "could you explain why you so abruptly ceased financial support for your son?" "Because I..." The air in Miss Schmidt's office felt thick with unspoken accusations, a palpable tension hanging heavier than the scent of her expensive perfume. I had finally reached my breaking point, the culmination of years of subtle manipulation and blatant financial exploitation at the hands of my own children, James and Mia. I began, my voice steady despite the tremor in my hands, that I was being used. Not as a mother, not as a grandmother, but as a walking, talking ATM. The words tasted bitter on my tongue, each syllable a heavy burden released. The realization had hit me like a physical blow, a cold, hard truth that shattered the carefully constructed illusion of family harmony. It wasn't a sudden epiphany, but a slow dawning realization, a gradual unveiling of a painful reality. Each time I'd given them money, for a new car, a down payment on a house, even seemingly small amounts for everyday expenses, it had chipped away at my sense of self-worth, leaving me hollowed out. The constant requests had morphed from innocent pleas into demands, then into outright entitlement. Their actions felt less like requests for help and more like acts of coercion, subtly reminding me of my role as the family provider, exploiting my inherent generosity and sense of familial obligation. It wasn't about need, I continued, my gaze unwavering. It was about greed, pure and simple. I was tired of financing their lavish lifestyles, tired of being seen as nothing more than an obstacle to their ambitions. They conveniently overlooked my own needs, my desires, my dreams. I was their personal piggy bank, my resources endlessly tapped without a second thought to the impact on my own future security. A heavy silence descended, broken only by the rhythmic tick-tock of the clock on the wall, each second emphasizing the weight of my words. Mr. Weber, my astute and ever-supportive lawyer, leaned forward. Miss Schmidt, he interjected, his voice calm and measured, do you honestly believe that it is a mother's responsibility to financially support her adult children, especially when those children are capable of supporting themselves? The question hung in the air, a rhetorical device that underscored the absurdity of their expectations. My responsibility, I responded, drawing a deep breath to steady myself, was to raise my son, to educate him, to equip him with the skills and knowledge to thrive independently. My son, now 35 years old, is married, gainfully employed, and more than capable of managing his own finances. Supporting his adult life isn't my obligation. It's a choice, and I've chosen to exercise my right to manage my own resources. Mr. Weber continued, his voice carrying the weight of legal precision, Miss Schmidt, would you consider it normal for a 35-year-old to be unable to meet his basic financial obligations, like rent, without the assistance of his 71-year-old mother? It's financially irresponsible, and frankly, quite appalling. It speaks volumes about their character and their priorities, their blatant disregard for your own well-being. They are using the guise of family to manipulate you. Mrs. Schmidt, initially taken aback, remained silent for a moment, her expression shifting from skepticism to contemplation. She appeared to be reassessing the situation, the carefully constructed narrative of my supposed incompetence crumbling before her eyes. Mrs. Richter, she finally said, her voice softer, more thoughtful, tell me about your financial affairs. Do you manage your finances independently? I produced meticulous documents, meticulously organized bank statements, detailed investment records, and flawlessly filed tax returns, each a testament to my financial acumen and self-sufficiency. Everything is current, in order, and reflects years of careful planning and prudent decision-making. I live independently, maintain my home, drive, enjoy active social life, and am in excellent health. My medical records confirm it. I take only vitamins and occasional aspirin. No chronic conditions, no medications beyond basic over-the-counter remedies. I'm not frail, not senile, not incompetent. I'm a strong, independent woman, and I'm not afraid to say no. Mr. Weber added, my client recently underwent a comprehensive medical evaluation as part of our legal proceedings. She is in perfect mental and physical condition. The reports are irrefutable, leaving no room for doubt about her competency. Mrs. Schmidt, clearly satisfied with the evidence, closed her file with a decisive snap. Mrs. Richter, she announced, based on this conversation and the documentation, I see no indication of risk or need for intervention. I am closing this case. As soon as Mrs. Schmidt left, a profound silence filled the room, a stark contrast to the tense atmosphere that had permeated the interview. Mr. Weber turned to me, his face etched with concern. Renate, he said, his voice low, this won't end here. James and Mia are clearly desperate. They've already spent significant funds on legal representation and medical evaluations, hoping to find someone willing to declare you incompetent. Does that not suggest the extent of their desperation? Exactly, I replied, a chill running down my spine. They're willing to do anything, risk everything for money. What other avenues might they explore? A lawsuit claiming incompetence, Mr. Weber stated grimly. It's costly, difficult to win, but with the right judge and a willing psychiatrist, they could obtain a guardianship, seize control of your assets. The thought was truly terrifying. That afternoon, I sought solace and support from my sister, Diana. "Sister," I poured out my heart to her, "do you see how far they are willing to go? They're jeopardizing family relationships, squandering money on lawyers and doctors, tarnishing their reputation, all for access to my bank account. It's appalling." Diana's response struck a chord. "Renata," she said, her voice laced with both empathy and anger, "they've revealed their true selves. There's no going back. No chance for genuine reconciliation. To them, you've never been a mother, a respected mother-in-law, or anything other than a walking money bag." Her words were brutal but liberating. The revelation was painful, yes, but also freeing. The guilt I'd carried, the nagging doubt about my decisions, evaporated. They had proven, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that their financial gain outweighed my well-being, my happiness, my peace of mind. Their actions stripped bare the hollow core of their supposed familial affection. That evening, Eleanor surprised me with a gathering of her garden club friends, Cynthia, whom I knew from the salon, Maria, Carmen, and Alfreda. They were all women who had weathered similar storms of familial betrayal and financial exploitation. We shared stories over wine and laughter, a cathartic release of shared experiences and unspoken pain. Maria had severed ties with a brother who constantly demanded money. Carmen had distanced herself from a daughter motivated solely by financial gain. Alfreda had rewritten her will to protect her assets from opportunistic grandchildren. What hurts most, I confess to my newfound circle of support, is not the loss of money itself, but the realization that the love I thought I had was never real. It was a transaction, nothing more. Alfreda, with the wisdom of her 80 years, offered a profound insight. "Renata," she said gently, "true love cannot be bought or sold. If you had to pay for it, it wasn't real." Her words were balm to my wounded soul. I had unwittingly bought attention, not love. I had financed an illusion. "You know," I shared with my new friends, "loneliness surrounded by people who don't love you is far worse than being alone. At least now, when I'm alone, I'm in good company." The laughter that followed was genuine, heartfelt, and healing. We toasted to our newfound wisdom, our resilience, and the bittersweet freedom that came with the truth. That night, under a star-studded sky, I felt a sense of calm I hadn't experienced in years. For the first time in my adult life, I was financially independent, free from the parasitic drain of ungrateful children. This newfound freedom wasn't frightening, it was exhilarating. I could travel, renovate my home, indulge in small luxuries, donate to my favorite charities, and, most importantly, invest in my future, my dreams, my own happiness. The taste of freedom was sweet, a taste of hope. And for the first time in years, I eagerly started planning my future, a future untainted by the parasitic greed of James and Mia. A month later, a beautiful routine had settled over my life, a routine that was filled with peace and purpose. The scent of fresh paint hung in the air, a vibrant contrast to the icy dread that gripped my heart. Sunlight streamed through the window, illuminating the cheerful wildflowers I was painstakingly rendering on my new easel, a hobby, a passion, a lifeline that had helped me navigate the turbulent waters of life before becoming James and Mia's personal financial manager. But the tranquility was shattered by a sharp rap on the door. Mr. Weber, my lawyer, stood on the porch, his usually jovial face etched with a grimness that sent a chill down my spine. His words, delivered with a painful formality, landed like blows. "Renate, we need to talk. James and Mia have filed a formal lawsuit in family court, alleging mental incompetence. They're seeking to have a legal guardian appointed for you." The words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. A possibility I'd nervously considered now crashed down upon me with the force of a tidal wave. The fear, cold and sharp, pierced through me. It wasn't just the humiliation, it was the terrifying prospect of losing control of my life, my finances, everything I had worked for. My hands, still holding the paintbrush, trembled uncontrollably. The vibrant colors on the canvas seemed to mock my inner turmoil. I sank onto the plush sofa, the soft cushions offering no comfort against the crushing weight of betrayal. My own son. To think he would stoop to such a level, to use the legal system as a weapon to seize my assets, to usurp my autonomy, the thought was almost unbearable. Does this mean they can take control of my money? I croaked, my voice barely a whisper. The question hung in the air, thick with unspoken anxieties. Mr. Weber, a seasoned veteran of legal battles, nodded grimly. If a judge determines you're unable to manage your affairs, yes. James, as your son, would likely be appointed your legal guardian, granting him complete control over your finances. The words were a death knell, echoing the deepest betrayal I had ever experienced. The image of James, my son, orchestrating this callous maneuver, gnawed at my conscience. How could someone I had nurtured, loved, and provided for, turn against me with such calculated cruelty? The injustice burned, leaving me breathless and numb. Mr. Weber, what evidence could they possibly have? I managed to ask, my voice shaking with a mixture of anger and disbelief. You yourself have witnessed my complete competence. You've seen me manage my affairs, my paintings, my life. Mr. Weber sighed, the lines on his face deepening with each passing moment. They've submitted statements from 3 witnesses claiming erratic behavior. Unpaid doctor's bills, supposedly. And they allege you hoarded medications without taking them. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. That's a blatant lie. I have no outstanding medical bills, nor do I hoard medication. This is a fabrication, a carefully constructed web of deceit. Mr. Weber explained further, his voice low and measured. They also included a statement from Dr. Lehman, stating your refusal to cooperate with a psychiatric evaluation. They've twisted your refusal into proof of mental decline. The cold dread intensified. Their manipulation was insidious, diabolical. They had taken my perfectly reasonable decision, a refusal to submit to what I considered an unnecessary examination, given my perfectly sound mind, and warped it into evidence of a failing intellect. They had weaponized my instinct to protect myself, twisting it into a sign of my needing protection. The sheer audacity of their scheme sickened me. Who are these 3 witnesses? I asked, my voice strained. Mr. Weber consulted his documents. Mia, naturally. A neighbor, Mr. Davis, and someone claiming to be your pharmacist, Mr. Green. Mr. Davis. The grumpy man across the street, always complaining about my friends parking on the curb. Mr. Green, my pharmacist, what possible grievance could he harbor? That afternoon, we visited Mr. Green's pharmacy. The pharmacist, a kind-faced man with tired eyes, looked surprised and somewhat apprehensive to see us. The ensuing conversation confirmed my worst fears. Mia, it turned out, had visited the pharmacy weeks prior, expressing concerns about my strange behavior and medication habits. Mr. Green, a kind man but easily manipulated, had unwittingly signed a document confirming that my medication purchases were irregular. He had believed it was a formality for Mia's health insurance, totally unaware that it was evidence in a lawsuit against me. The casual cruelty of Mia's actions hung heavy in the air. The pharmacist was contrite, deeply regretful. I asked him to rectify the misunderstanding, to write a statement clarifying the situation. He readily agreed. Our next stop was Mr. Davis's house. His hostility was palpable from the moment we knocked. He didn't bother to hide his disdain. What do you want? He spat. His testimony was a distorted caricature of reality. He had interpreted my security cameras, installed for protection after James and Mia's previous intrusion, as signs of paranoia, my new friends as suspicious strangers, and my firm defense of my property as evidence of madness. His statement was built on superficial, malicious misinterpretations. There was no point in arguing. Reason wouldn't penetrate his prejudice. That evening, back in my living room, the weight of the day heavy upon me, Mr. Weber and I plotted our defense. Renate, he said, his voice firm, we need our own psychiatric evaluation. I have a colleague, Dr. Moore, an expert in assessing mental capacity. She can confirm your competence. A sliver of hope pierced the despair. But the shadow of doubt lingered. What if James and Mia have already bribed the judge? What if all this evidence is meaningless? I whispered, the fear still clinging to me. Mr. Weber's response was measured, yet reassuring. The legal system isn't perfect, but it's not completely corrupt. We have evidence of your competence and their financial motives. We will fight this. The following day, I met Dr. Moore, a woman in her 50s with kind, perceptive eyes. The 2-hour examination was rigorous, a series of questions, tests, and cognitive exercises designed to assess every facet of my mental state. Memory, reasoning, financial acumen, emotional stability, all were meticulously probed. The relief that washed over me when Dr. Moore declared my cognitive function, well above average for my age, was immense. It was a confirmation of what I already knew, but it was validation from an authority figure, something that would hopefully hold weight in court. Your mental competence isn't just intact, Mrs. Richter, she concluded, your cognitive abilities are excellent. Why do you think my own son and daughter-in-law would try to so cruelly and unjustly destroy my life and future? The question hung unanswered, a bitter testament to the complexities of family relationships. The lawyer's words hung in the air, heavy with accusation. How could they, my own children, James and Mia, stoop to such depths? The accusation of elder financial exploitation, confirmed by my lawyer, felt like a physical blow. It wasn't just the financial implications, it was the brutal betrayal of trust, the shattering of a lifetime's worth of love and sacrifice. The validation I received from the consultation was a bittersweet victory, a confirmation of my sanity, yes, but also a chilling reminder of the legal battle ahead. That afternoon, Eleanor, a dear friend from our garden club, rallied the troops. The news of the lawsuit sparked immediate outrage. The women, a vibrant tapestry of ages and experiences, gathered in Eleanor's sun-drenched living room, Renate, Maria, Cynthia, and the wise Alfreda, whose 80 years held a lifetime of stories. Their collective indignation was a balm to my wounded spirit. Renate, my dear, Alfreda said, her voice raspy but firm, her hand gripping mine with surprising strength. What your children are doing is as old as time itself. Greedy offspring declaring their parents unfit, seizing their assets, it's a timeless tragedy. But you, my dear, you have something many victims don't, irrefutable evidence, steadfast legal counsel, and, most importantly, a loyal circle of witnesses who can vouch for your lucidity, your strength, your unwavering spirit. They've seen the transformation, the rebirth of Renate, the woman who refused to be silenced, the woman who rose from the ashes of their betrayal. Her words, seasoned with decades of life's wisdom, ignited a spark of hope in my heart. I wasn't alone. I had an army of steadfast allies, women who had borne witness to my journey, to my resilience. The saddest part, I whispered, tears stinging my eyes, is that James and Mia are willing to obliterate any chance of reconciliation for the sake of money. Even if I forgave everything, and believe me, I've considered it, there's no going back from this. This level of deception, this calculated cruelty, it leaves an unfillable void. Cynthia, ever practical, offered a different perspective. Maybe that's for the best, Renate. At least now you know the truth, the stark, unforgiving reality of who they truly are. And with that knowledge, you can act accordingly, without the weight of misplaced hope. That night, the tears finally came. Not tears of sadness, but of profound grief. I mourned the son I thought I had, the family I envisioned, the belief in unconditional love that had been so cruelly shattered. Yet, from the ashes of that grief, something new was born, an unyielding determination, a steely resolve. I wouldn't just protect my financial assets, I would defend my dignity, my autonomy, my very right to exist free from their abusive manipulation. The war had begun, and I was ready. 3 weeks later, the day of the trial arrived. I woke, dressed in my best black suit, a garment that mirrored my resolve. This wasn't just about my mental competence, it was about my inherent worth, my right to self-determination, my value as a human being, independent of my bank account. Mr. Weber, my lawyer, a man whose quiet confidence was as reassuring as a warm embrace, arrived early to review our strategy for one final time. Renate, he reassured me, his voice calm and steady, remember, the burden of proof rests entirely on their shoulders. They must prove your incompetence. Our task is simply to demonstrate that you are perfectly capable of managing your own affairs. But what if the judge is predisposed to favor them? I worried. Judge Miller has a reputation for fairness, Renate. I've researched his previous cases, and he doesn't automatically side with families in these situations. He is dedicated to protecting the rights of the elderly, ensuring they are not victims of exploitation. The courthouse buzzed with nervous energy. In the hallway, I spotted James in a new suit, a rather ostentatious display for the occasion, and Mia, dressed entirely in black, as if attending a funeral. Perhaps it was, I thought grimly, the funeral of our family. James averted his gaze. Mia, however, met my eyes with a chilling coldness, a stark confirmation that this was purely a business transaction to her, devoid of any familial affection or regret. Their lawyer, a silver-haired man exuding an air of practiced confidence, began his opening statement. His strategy was clear: to portray me as a confused, easily manipulated woman, alienated from her loving family by unscrupulous neighbors and opportunistic lawyers. Your Honor, he intoned in a voice dripping with manufactured solemnity, Mrs. Renate Richter has exhibited a marked mental decline in recent months. She has abruptly ceased financial support for her family without rational explanation. She has installed excessive security measures, indicative of paranoia, and isolated herself from her loved ones, influenced by those who prey on her vulnerability. Every carefully chosen word was designed to twist my self-empowerment into dementia, my freedom into external manipulation. The prosecution called their witnesses. Mia took the stand first, delivering an Oscar-worthy performance. Tears streamed down her face as she described my supposed transformation, painting me as hostile, paranoid, and estranged from the loving family I had allegedly abandoned. Your Honor, she sobbed, Renate has always been like a second mother to me. Witnessing her decline has been devastating. We only want to help her receive the care she needs. Lies, skillfully veiled in convincing tears. Under Mr. Weber's skillful cross-examination, however, the carefully constructed facade began to crumble. Mrs. Schuster, Mr. Weber asked, his voice sharp and precise, can you tell the court when you last contacted my client without requesting money? Mia stammered, well, we always talked about many things. Can you provide a specific date? Mr. Weber pressed. I don't remember exact dates. The questions continued, each one chipping away at her credibility. Is it true that you and your husband eloped, failing to invite my client? It was a very small ceremony. Is it true that when my client inquired about the wedding, you told her she wasn't considered a special person? Mia's face flushed crimson. Those words were taken out of context. What context justifies telling your mother-in-law she's not considered special? Mia offered no convincing answer. James followed Mia to the stand. Seeing him there, swearing to tell the truth while poised to lie about my mental state, was perhaps the most agonizing moment of my life. This was the son I had raised alone, the boy to whom I dedicated my entire life. My mother has always been very generous, he testified, his voice tight with unconvincing sincerity. But lately, she's become erratic, irrational. We believe. His testimony continued, a carefully orchestrated performance designed to undermine my credibility, a calculated betrayal that pierced my heart with a sharper pain than any physical wound. The battle was far from over, but I stood ready, armed with truth, with justice, and with the unwavering support of the women who had become my family, my army, my shield against the storm of their betrayal. The courtroom air hung thick with tension, a palpable silence broken only by the rhythmic tick-tock of the grandfather clock in the hallway. Mrs. Renate Richter, a woman whose 71 years were etched onto her face like a well-loved map, sat ramrod straight, her gaze unwavering. The culmination of years of subtle manipulation, of slow erosion of her autonomy, had led to this courtroom showdown. Her son, James, and his wife, Mia, stood accused of attempting to gain control of her finances and her life, cloaking their actions in the guise of familial concern. Mr. Weber, her astute and compassionate lawyer, had meticulously dismantled their case, layer by painstaking layer. The cross-examination of James had been a masterclass in controlled demolition. The carefully constructed facade of concern crumbled under the weight of Mr. Weber's precise questioning. "Mr. Richter," Mr. Weber's voice, smooth yet firm, echoed through the courtroom. "How much money have you received from your mother in the last 3 years?" "The exact amount, sir." "Don't hesitate. We have records, you understand." James stammered, his carefully rehearsed answers dissolving into uncomfortable mumbles. $33,400, Mr. Weber stated flatly, the figure hanging heavy in the air. "Does that sound about right?" James, sweating slightly, could only offer a vague, "Maybe, she's always been generous." The silence that followed was a chasm, a stark contrast to the carefully crafted image of filial piety James had attempted to project. "Mr. Weber pressed further, each question a carefully aimed arrow piercing the flimsy armor of James's lies. "And how many times, Mr. Richter, have you visited your mother without asking for money? Be specific. Dates, if possible." The silence stretched, becoming an almost physical entity, the weight of unspoken truths pressing down on the courtroom. Mr. Weber didn't need an answer, the silence spoke volumes. He moved on, his voice taking on a sharper edge. "Is it true, Mr. Richter, that you and your wife illegally entered my client's home, rifling through her private documents?" James shifted uncomfortably, glancing at Mia, who offered no support. "We were worried about her," he mumbled weakly, the words pathetic in their inadequacy. The carefully constructed narrative of concerned children was rapidly disintegrating. Mr. Weber pressed relentlessly. "And is it also true that you enlisted the services of a lawyer to pressure Mrs. Richter into signing a power of attorney, a document she clearly didn't understand?" The question hung in the air, a stark accusation. "We wanted to help her manage her finances," James responded, his voice tight with desperation. The irony was not lost on anyone present, the suggestion of help was a thinly veiled attempt to seize control. The final blow was delivered with surgical precision. "Do you, Mr. Richter, a 35-year-old man, require the financial assistance of your 71-year-old mother to pay your rent?" James, his face ashen, offered no response. His carefully constructed facade had completely collapsed. The testimony of other witnesses further eroded James and Mia's case. Mr. Davis, presented by James's legal team as evidence of Mrs. Richter's erratic behavior, admitted under cross-examination to having never directly interacted with Mrs. Richter, his testimony based entirely on gossip and hearsay. Dr. Lehman's claim of Mrs. Richter's mental decline was shattered by Mr. Weber's presentation of the comprehensive and recent evaluation conducted by Dr. Moore, which unequivocally confirmed Mrs. Richter's full cognitive capacity. Even Mr. Green, the pharmacist, revealed how he had been subtly coerced into signing a statement that misrepresented Mrs. Richter's medication purchases. Then came the testimony of Mrs. Richter's friends, Eleanor, a vibrant woman with a smile that could light up a room, and her gardening club companions, who painted a picture of a woman thriving, engaged, and mentally sharp. They spoke of Mrs. Richter's newfound vitality, her active participation in their social circle, her clear thinking and spirited nature, a stark contrast to the image of a frail, incompetent woman portrayed by James and Mia. The courtroom was silent, the witnesses' words resonating long after their testimony had ended. Finally, it was Mrs. Richter's turn. She rose, her frail frame radiating an unexpected strength, a quiet dignity that commanded attention. As she walked to the witness stand, her eyes held a lifetime of experience, of pain overcome, of wisdom gained through adversity. She spoke with measured calm, detailing the insidious manipulation, the constant emotional pressure, the humiliation of being excluded from her granddaughter's wedding, and the violation of her privacy. When Mr. Weber asked her why she had cut off financial support, her voice resonated with quiet strength. "Because I finally understood that what I was receiving from them was not love, but a commercial transaction disguised as a family relationship. My money was welcome, but I, as a person, was not." Tears glistened in her eyes, but her voice never wavered. "Do you regret your decision?" Mr. Weber asked gently. "I only regret that it took me so long to make it," she replied, her voice clear and strong. James's lawyer attempted a desperate cross-examination, aiming to portray Mrs. Richter as confused and easily manipulated, but his attempts were futile. Mrs. Richter answered each question with precise clarity, her responses disarming and precise. The lawyer's attempts to paint her new friendships as manipulative were easily countered. These friendships, she explained, were built on mutual respect and genuine connection, a stark contrast to the transactional relationships she had previously endured. In his closing argument, James's lawyer clung to the desperate claim that Mrs. Richter was a victim of external manipulation, a puppet controlled by others. Mr. Weber's rebuttal was a masterpiece of legal artistry, a devastating takedown of the plaintiff's case. "Your Honor," he said, his voice resonating with quiet power, "what we have witnessed here is not the case of an incompetent old woman, but that of a woman who has finally found the strength to free herself from years of financial and emotional abuse. The plaintiffs have presented no credible medical evidence. Their frustration stems from the fact that their source of income has exercised her legal and moral right to protect her own resources." The judge's deliberation felt like an eternity, 2 hours that stretched into a lifetime of anticipation. When he finally returned, his expression was serious but just. "It is obvious to this court that Mrs. Renate Richter is in full possession of her mental faculties," he announced. "Professional psychiatric evaluations confirm her cognitive competence. Her financial decisions, while painful for her family, are entirely rational and well within her rights." A wave of relief washed over Mrs. Richter. The judge continued, "Furthermore, the evidence suggests that this lawsuit is motivated by financial interest rather than genuine concern for Mrs. Richter's well-being. The court completely denies the request for guardianship. Mrs. Richter had won. She had won her freedom, her dignity, and her right to live free from the suffocating grip of those who had pretended to love her." As she left the courthouse, she saw James and Mia arguing angrily with their lawyer. Mia gave her a look of pure hatred before storming off. James looked at her one last time. For a fleeting second, she saw what might have been regret, but it was already too late. That night, Eleanor hosted a joyous celebration, a testament to friendship, justice, and the enduring strength of women supporting each other. "Renata," Alfreda said, raising her glass, "today you didn't just win a trial. You won back your life." And she was right. The future stretched before her, bright and limitless, filled with the promise of travel, art, volunteer work, and the simple joy of living free from fear, guilt, and manipulation. 3 months later, she sold her house, moving to a beautiful apartment near the city center. Half her money went to organizations dedicated to protecting the elderly from family abuse. The rest funded the life she had always dreamed of. She traveled extensively, pursued her passion for art, and found fulfillment in helping others. She never heard from James and Mia again. She later learned, through mutual acquaintances, that they had been forced to downsize and that Mia had finally found employment. Perhaps adversity, she mused, would teach them what her generosity never could, the value of honest work and true independence. Some nights, though, as she gazed out at the city lights, a faint ache of sadness lingered, a lingering reminder of the family she had lost, not to death, but to avarice and the corrosive power of unchecked ambition. From my new balcony, the night sky sprawled before me, a breathtaking panorama of glittering stars. Each tiny point of light felt like a distant memory, a testament to the vastness of time and the even greater expanse of personal transformation. I gazed up, lost in contemplation, my mind drifting back to the woman I was a year ago, a frightened, manipulated shell of a person, someone who foolishly believed love could be bought. That woman, that shadow of my former self, felt as distant and unreachable as those celestial bodies above. She believed that the lavish gifts, the expensive dinners, the promises of a life of luxury were equivalent to genuine affection. How naive I was. How tragically wrong I was. The pain of that realization still lingered, a faint ache in my chest, a ghost of a past I had finally shed. But that woman is gone. She's died, not a physical death, but a death of the spirit, a shedding of a false belief system that had chained me for far too long. In her place stands someone new, reborn from the ashes of that painful past. Someone who now grasps a truth so fundamental, so profoundly simple, yet so often overlooked: true love is never for sale. It cannot be bought, bargained for, or traded like some commodity. It blossoms organically, untainted by the stench of greed and the insidious whisper of manipulation. This newfound understanding is the bedrock of my current existence, a beacon guiding me through the twilight of my years. My name is Renate, and at 72 years old, I've finally learned the most crucial lesson of all. The most precious love, the most vital protection, is the love and protection I offer myself. The cool night air brushed against my skin, a gentle caress that mirrored the serenity I'd finally found. This balcony, perched high above the bustling city below, symbolized this newfound freedom. It represents a sanctuary, a haven where I can reflect, where I can reconnect with the essence of who I am, free from the expectations and demands of others. The city lights twinkled like fallen stars, each one a tiny reminder of the journeys, the mistakes, and the triumphs that have shaped me into the woman I am today. Before, my life was a frantic pursuit of external validation, a desperate attempt to fill the void within with material possessions and the fleeting approval of others. I remember Mia, a woman I once considered a friend, telling me stories of lavish gifts she received from her spouse. The diamonds, the cars, the vacations, they sounded enchanting. But beneath the surface, I sensed a subtle undercurrent of unhappiness, a subtle discontent that mirrored my own. Her story was a cautionary tale, an echo of my own misguided pursuit of superficial happiness. Now I understand that true wealth lies not in material possessions, but in inner peace, in self-acceptance, in the quiet contentment of a life lived authentically. The freedom I now possess is not simply the absence of constraints, but the conscious choice to live life on my own terms. It's the unwavering commitment to prioritize my own well-being, my own happiness, above all else. It's a freedom that transcends material possessions, social pressures, and societal expectations. It's a freedom that tastes like the crisp morning air, feels like the warm sun on my skin, and sounds like the gentle rustling of leaves in the breeze. It's the freedom to choose love, not for the price it may fetch, but for the priceless experience it provides. If you enjoyed my story, consider supporting me with a donation. Your generosity would allow me to share more of my life experiences, and to continue weaving tales that might offer solace, inspiration, or a simple moment of reflection for others. Your contributions would enable me to share more stories, to further my pursuit of writing, and to ensure these tales are accessible to those who need them most. Thank you in advance for your kindness and consideration. And to you, dear reader, what would you have done in my place? Would you have followed the same path, or would you have made different choices? What would it take to dismantle the lies, to reclaim your self-worth, and to truly understand the immeasurable value of authentic love and genuine freedom? I would be honored to hear your thoughts, your experiences, your unique perspectives. Share your thoughts in the comments section below. Let's engage in a conversation, a dialogue of experience and understanding. Tell me where you heard this story, and let's continue this meaningful journey together. Like this video and subscribe to my channel for more life stories that will resonate with your heart. Many more heartfelt experiences await you. With heartfelt greetings, until next time.